because when I met with her at first, he kept calling her a mediator. We're going to do a mediator. We're going to do a mediator. She's a lawyer, but we're using her as a mediator. And then when I met her, I specifically asked, now, are you our mediator or are you his lawyer? She's like, oh, yeah, I'm his lawyer.
Welcome to the Heavy Pages podcast, a guiding light for women facing the paralyzing challenges of an unwanted separation. If you're feeling frozen by the weight of heartbreak or the uncertainty of a crumbling relationship, you're not alone. I'm Josie, your host, and a separation survival specialist, because I've been where you are, overwhelmed, emotionally stuck, and unsure of what lies ahead. But here's the truth: healing and empowerment are within your reach. Together, we'll shatter the chains of paralysis, embrace this journey, and pave the way to your new future. So it's time to step forward, find your strength, and rewrite your story, because the pages of life can be heavy, but you don't have to turn them alone. Now, before we start today's episode, please consider taking a moment to click that subscribe button. And with that, here we go. Hello, and a warm welcome to today's chapter checkup session, where we will be hearing from another courageous woman as she shares her transformative journey from devastated to divorce. And we'll be using the 5 chapters of my program as the guide. If you're curious about these chapters and how they align with your personal journey, don't forget to visit heavypagespodcast.com for your free chapter checklist. And with that, here's today's interview. All right, well, today we have a guest, Nicole. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
And, well, tell us a little about you.
Oh, I'm in the process of a divorce. I've got 2 kids, and I'm a full-time student.
Excellent. And how old are your children?
11 and 8.
So tell me how you met your soon-to-be ex.
We met at my best friend's house. She was sharing a house with her brother, and he was friends with her brother. So They both had visitors, and there we were.
And how long did you date before you got married?
About 3.5 years, maybe longer, maybe 4 years, roughly.
And how long have you been married?
12 years.
And you're not officially divorced yet?
Not yet.
So how long have you been separated?
Oh, God. It was 3 years, Thanksgiving weekend.
And how did the separation come about? Whose decision was it? How did it kind of happen?
It was his decision. I came home from visiting family to an empty closet and a note.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So clearly that's put you right into chapter 2 of the guide, which is blindsided and devastated. I'm going to assume, I don't want to assume, but would that be accurate to say?
Absolutely. He had never even mentioned the word divorced.
So then we're going to just step a little bit backwards to chapter 1, which is blissfully unaware or subconsciously aware. Which one of those would you say you were in your relationship as how you felt your marriage was going?
Probably subconsciously aware. We definitely were tense, but we're not fighters. Neither of us verbally argue out loud.
Just, some issues. There were some issues there, but, not something you would think was bad enough for him to leave you a note.
Right.
So tell me, when you came home and discovered this, what was your process at that time? Like, what did you do? How did you feel? What?
I decorated the house with my kids for Christmas because that was on today's agenda. So I put on a fake smile, and after that, I just called him and said, we probably should talk about this. So that's when the official separation started, I guess. We decided to try during that conversation to at least try to work things out now that I had been made aware that he was that unhappy.
And was that what was that the reason he said he was not happy, or mine was, I love you, I just not in love with you anymore, or I love you but I don't love you that way anymore? What was his reasoning? Just unhappiness? Or
Yeah, I had some infidelity. I'm bisexual, and I hooked up with a woman, and I mean, I felt bad about it, but wasn't truly sorry because I wasn't stepping out for something that he could offer me. And he had known about it, the entire time we were married, that I liked women. I did feel bad about not talking to him about it before. So he, had valid reasons. I also did drink quite a bit just because I was unhappy in the marriage also. I am a very open communicator, and he's a very hold everything to himself type of guy. So not having those communication skills between us caused a lot of tension. So I think he was just tired of it.
And going through chapter 2, were you like promising things? Were you having trouble accepting, or were you able to move through that chapter pretty quickly? There wasn't a lot of struggle, fighting for the marriage, not believing it was over.
I mean, I didn't believe it was over necessarily. I knew that he was dead serious about it. But I thought there was potential if we both put an effort in that it could be fixed. I quit drinking. We started marriage counseling. I did everything I could do. Like, that's what I had to do 100% to be okay with myself. Just put in all the effort possible, do everything he asked. And I did that.
Okay. And it just didn't really work out.
He didn't reciprocate. Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes something that I have learned by going through it myself and by speaking to others is usually by the time they leave, they've worked through a lot of the process while they're there with you. So once they leave, they've pretty much cut a lot of the emotion out of it and the fight, which is unfortunate because if they speak up sooner, you have more chance to fix things. But by the time they're at that point, as much as you do to try and, these are the things you don't really like about the relationship, I will fix them or work on them if they're, valid things.
Right.
They're already like, well, I've already done the work of checking myself out. So it doesn't matter what you do at that point, which puts the person that's being left in a very unfair disadvantage, because if there was that communication that you're saying that there wasn't, listen, I'm not happy. I want us to be able to work at this. And you both are at a position in life where you're willing to work at it. There's a chance. But by the time that they decide I'm done, they haven't had that communication with you for the most part. And then, you could do exactly every single thing that they wish or needed or complain about, and they'll still be like, well, I already checked that.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. Okay. So then, are you in the process of divorcing? Are papers filed? Has anything like that, been talked about? And
we're in the process. He actually filed then 3 years ago, and we met with the lawyer. But then once, he discussed with her that we were trying to work things out, she said, well, let's postpone the proceedings until that. So then, I don't know, it was December 5th of last year when I finally said, I'm done. I've tried everything I can try. So then we met back with the lawyer and started going over, I don't know what they're called, the papers, the agreement. So I have the agreement now. I just got it last month. So now it's my turn to counter offer whatever that is.
So you have to discuss child custody, but by this time, you guys did you still have a house together or property or things like that you would need to divide?
Yeah, we've been through a lot of that already. We've had our assessments or appraisals, that's what they're called. So the kids and I are in the house, in the home, and he is renting elsewhere. So, yeah, we're still figuring out. Most of it will be custody, and child support and stuff. I started schooling, and the laws in our state are I can get alimony only if I'm a student. So here I am studying away.
There you go. Well, you mentioned, in your intake form that you were a stay-at-home mom for all of these years. So basically,
that's why I'm at school.
Exactly. So that you have something to, be able to support yourself in your, child support is great, but it's not going to, some people feel like, oh, you're making child support, you're living pretty. That's not really, unless you're, one of these super mega celebrities that are getting, thousands and thousands of dollars a month.
Yeah.
Child support makes sure that your child has a roof and that, there's some food on the table, but it doesn't cover every eventuality. And I know It's not supposed to, but when you're a stay-at-home mom, you're starting from zero. So
yeah, exactly.
And how is he on child support and visitation? Does he see the children? Does he try and have a relationship with him? Is he paying support, or is he not yet? Is he waiting for the court to say?
Yeah. Since we haven't officially filed, I asked him specifically, let's not file until we have our agreement figured out between us so that we don't put the court off again, which he's agreed to. So no, he's not paying child support. We still have a joint checking account. He pays for everything still. The whole 3 years he has financially supported us.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's good, at least.
Yeah, I definitely can't complain.
Exactly. Can't complain about that. Okay. And so you were also saying that you feel like you're in the, Better, Stronger, Loved You, chapter 4, that you're working on yourself, your self-esteem, building yourself back up. Would you say, like many would, but not everybody, that, this situation gave a hit to your self-esteem? Did you feel like you had self-worth, self-esteem issues before, or were you like, or not, maybe? How do you feel about your...
No, I felt pretty good about myself. I think that, stage 2, chapter 2, made me feel more empowered, just doing everything I need to do, gave me peace about the whole divorce, knowing that I can walk away from it, not feeling like there are ties left unbuckled. I know I'm a capable human. I like myself a lot.
Excellent.
I never required him to value myself. So I think just the divorce process has made me feel stronger as a contributing member to society.
Well, that's definitely good. I mean, it helps when you have good self-esteem to be able to work through, like chapter 2, the blindsided and devastated, because then you're not feeling like you're worthless without him, right? Because if you feel that internal fortitude and power, then you're like, this really sucks. I would love to have stayed married. I wanted us to be a family. It's not going to happen. It hurts, but let's see what's next.
Right.
That is very hard for many women to do, myself included. I was in chapter 2 for a very long time, but I entered my marriage very strong-willed, tough as nails, for me, in my opinion, a badass chick, and I ended it a complete puddle of mess. So I was not prepared for the blindsided and devastated part, but that was part of my journey. So now I know to never let that happen to myself again. I'm more, conscious of myself. So, but that helps. That definitely helps to already be there at that point. So you don't have to go through what you're going through or what we went through. And you were able to move through it faster, it sounds like. So not to say there wasn't pain, of course.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely a blow.
Right. So what would you say out of all of this has been the hardest part for you?
My kids, just keeping my kids happy and healthy and well balanced. I've got one who actually looks like my husband amazingly, but personality wise is a lot like me. And then another who looks like me, but is like my husband in personality. And so my eldest, the one that is like me, he doesn't get along with his dad. He doesn't care if he goes to visit, rarely wants to talk to him on the phone. But then my youngest, he's 8. He worships his dad. They get along great. And my husband has them every other weekend, no extra days. That's just not enough time for him. And it's hard for him. I don't try to badmouth their dad to him, no matter how I'm feeling.
Right.
So trying to make up excuses for him, and that's difficult. Trying to let my kids see their father as a father and not a failed partner is probably the biggest challenge.
Yes, that is definitely hard, especially in the instance that they don't see them that often. And I'm not sure how yours is. Does he stick with his weekends? Is he like, does he ask for a lot of, hey, can we switch because this came up or whatever? Or is he very good at, this is my weekend, I will be there?
Yeah, he's good. He's good about taking them on those 4 days a month.
On the weekend. And so is it for mine, it was every other weekend and one night a week, but the every other weekend was Friday after school till Monday at school. So he kept them the entire weekend, and he picked them up from school. Well, he didn't pick them up from school because he had to work. So I would pick him up from school on Friday, and he would pick him up from me, but then he would keep him and take him to school on the Monday. So is that not as long as he has them?
No, I typically drop them off with him on Friday evenings after he gets out of work, and then he brings them Sunday before dinner time.
Do you guys live far from each other?
It's about a 30-minute drive. He's not bought anything permanent yet, so he moves.
Okay.
He lives in a camper that's about 15 minutes away, but then in the winter time, he rents the place. And that's
okay.
Let's see, 3 towns over.
And the one night a week, like to pick them up on Wednesdays for dinner or something, just to see them, but not really have to have them overnight to rush them back to school or whatever. Has that been something that he would be interested in, or would that not really work for your schedule? Or
I would be okay if we did it that way, one night a week where he just had them for dinner time or a couple hours after school. I'd be okay with that. But the spending the night on that weeknight, I just feel like changing bus schedules, I feel like that would be a disruption for the kids. So as long as he had them home by bedtime, I think I'd be okay with that.
And that's kind of how I think my Wednesday nights went. I don't even remember now. But that way he would see them at least. That's a whole extra 4 days of the month that he could see them. And then it wouldn't go that that long of a span of time. So something to consider if it would work for both of your schedules. Okay. Well, yes, it is difficult co-parenting, even with the best co-parent, right? Even with someone who is really flexible and stuff. There's adult things that don't really mesh with the kid things, and you can't help but feel bad for what your kids going through, and that they miss their dad, or sometimes you feel like their dad could be doing a little more, but you're not going to tell them that, but you have that inside.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, that's really annoying. So it makes things difficult. But you're going to school. Or what are you going to school for?
A few things, actually. I'm in business classes right now, but next semester I'll start massage therapy, so that I just figured that would be something I could do. Our town has nothing. You have to drive over 30 minutes away to get to a massage. And the only chiropractor in town, she's got a massage therapist, but she's booked up for 6 months. So I figured, hey, I get this license, and that's just something I can do on the side. Go to people's houses, quick income. But then I'll start accounting. I became an accountant.
Well, I mean, that makes perfect sense, especially if there's a need, and that's perfect. I mean, it's like a built-in,
right?
It's built in for you because it's like, well, hey, here's another offering and quick, easy money, and it doesn't take years to get the license for massage and stuff like that. So,
right, it'll take like a year and a half. So maybe not even that. 2 semesters, 3 semesters. Not too bad.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good way of doing it. And do you have like a support system for yourself and and the kids?
Emotionally, I have a wonderful tribe, a great support system. I am fairly isolated. We live rurally. My closest family member is over an hour away. So it's babysitters are few and far between.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit harder, but okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like you kind of have your ducks in a row. I mean, it's always going to be a process and a roller coaster, but you're on your way to actually being divorced. And it sounds like he's willing to talk to you about, you don't have to get two lawyers and argue and spend thousands of dollars, which I always think is super crazy.
We'll see. He has a lawyer. I do not. So, I don't know. I've got to finish up my budget, and I'm at least going to meet with a lawyer. We'll see about how well a divorce goes.
Well, you said you have the paperwork that his lawyer prepared.
Yes.
Okay. And, not to go into too many details, but you've looked into it, and does it look like it's kind of the same stuff you both have spoken about and agreed to, or?
Most of it is. There's a few things I'm just nervous about. He's got one stipulation where we split every account that has our joint names on it, but we keep accounts that have our single names on it. I don't have any accounts with only my name on it, so I'm wondering, is there an account I don't know about? So
very smart. Yes.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And that's probably possible because, one of the first things that is advised even to women is to have your own separate account. Not that if you go through a divorce, he's not entitled to that, but just so if this sort of situation were to happen, you had some money to be able to draw from in the meantime. You know what I mean? Like there's money there. But technically, since you are still married, I don't, each state is different, but that would be something to question. And really the only way to probably do that is to get the lawyer to ask for a full, accounting of all sorts of, so that gets a little dicey. Okay. Yeah, I can see where that would probably be a good idea. And yes, I mean, if he has a lawyer that's willing to talk to you, they're not your lawyer.
Right.
They are willing to talk to you, but they are out for his best interest. So
exactly. And that's also what has set me on edge, because when I met with her at first, he kept calling her a mediator. We're going to do a mediator. We're going to do a mediator. She's a lawyer, but we're using her as a mediator. And then when I met her, I specifically asked, now, are you our mediator or are you his lawyer? She's like, oh, yeah, I'm his lawyer. I was like, oh, okay. So I know he's been not fully honest. So,
definitely she's not, I'm not saying she's working against you, but she is absolutely working for him, his interests. So it would probably be smart to consult yours. And I'm sure as soon as you show them that, they're going to be like, oh yeah, there's something there that you can either forget about or look into, And, my advice would be, if everything else really looks good and everything is fair, depending on how you're going to split the house, all that kind of stuff, consider how much it's going to cost to dig and find what that might be.
Exactly.
And if it would be worth it or not. I mean, and then, you know enough about him and how his work is. Could he have amassed, $1 million in the 2 or 3 years that you guys have been? So it's like, well, I'm not walking away from tons of money.
I mean, it could be 50,000. He gets pretty sizable bonuses, but we'll see.
And so that's just, the thing to, and you're going to be an accountant. So I'm sure you know numbers and how to make a cute little spreadsheet and figure out the pros and the cons and all that stuff. So I am not one to suggest that anybody walk away from money that they rightly deserve. I'm not. But I also definitely suggest don't fight for every penny.
Right.
Unless you absolutely have to, because the stress and trouble that brings sometimes is not worth it. You know? So
I just want to, as long as I can afford my house, I'm happy, honestly. I mean, we bought our house at 50 grand, which is nothing. And I thought, okay, I'll keep the house. I can afford this. But then when we got it appraised, it was when the market was like crazy. So it's doubled in value now, and I have to pay off that equity. So I am nervous about now being able to afford my home. It's not a big house, it's not something fancy, but
trust me, I know my place is, honestly, if somebody paid what they value my house at now, I'd say you're an idiot. Like, this is not worth that. So, so I get where you're coming from. But so then he would want to split the house, meaning you would have to buy out his half of the equity.
Yes.
So which would be in a refinance, which would really bring up the
which is
cost and the mortgage payment.
a whole nother, that's going to bring up the interest rates are crazy right now. I have been a stay-at-home mom for 12 years. I have zero credit. I can't even get a credit card because I have no credit. That is the scariest part for me right now. My best friend finally is like, oh, I'll just put you in as a user on my card. So now I've got some way to establish credit. But for months, almost a year, I've been trying to establish stay-at-home mom credit. And it's hard when you just have no credit history.
I was in the similar situation, but for me, it was I had terrible credit because when we got married, I was the stay-at-home mom and he was the worker. He brought in the income and whatever, and I was very stupid. And so I put all of my credit to the side, all of my bills, all of my stuff was back burner because we needed him to have great credit. So, my student loans were deferred for the entire time we were married. And when we divorced, I still had that debt and all of his was paid off because we were worried about him. So yes, I started with a gas card, one of those very small balances where, it's like $300 and I would put gas, pay off the gas, build up credit kind of that way. Sometimes if you can't do that, they do offer credit cards where you put the money down and it's like, well, here's your credit card. It's $300. You put the $300, like a secured credit card, right?
Yeah, secured card.
And then you still use it, but it still gives you credit.
Right. I didn't get pre-approved for one of those either.
Really? Okay.
Because I looked on Capital One's website and I don't know what happened. I had been approved for like 4 cards on Capital One. And then when I was finally ready to pull the trigger and apply for their card, I went back through the pre-approval process and not even those secure cards showed up.
And you have a bank that you go to or a credit union that maybe they would offer something?
Yeah, I have a credit union as our bank. They actually are the ones who do our mortgage as well. And they, even though they've seen our payment history and stuff via the bank account, it's a Visa card. They send it out to another company and they said, nope, you're going to have a cosigner or
okay,
we can't give you a card either, which right. Considering they won't give me a credit card, I have a feeling they're not going to refinance my house for me.
Right. Well, the idea of friends, if you have a couple other ones that are willing to put you on that have good credit, because you definitely don't want somebody who's right. paying late on their bills or stuff like that. That is a good way to establish, and it's no risk to them because they're not handing you the card. It's just, you put your name on there so that you help build the credit. Now, obviously, I'm not a lawyer. I'm definitely not giving legal advice as a lawyer or anything like that, but something to consider for the house, and that I've heard that other people do, is that you request that you get to stay in the house, not buy him out or whatever, until the children reach maturity, 18, that you want that stipulated so that they have a place to live. You can't sell it, so you can't get the equity. He will wait and hold until this time because it's for the kids, not for you or whatever. So a lawyer would have to write that up and whatever and put that as a counter offer. And since refinancing is just really not doable, and then not being able to pay rent somewhere else is probably going to be difficult, that would be something that I would consider talking to someone about.
I'm going to note that down.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't know that was an option.
Yeah. I mean, you can request just about anything, and your children are young. You've been established there. You can't afford to move anywhere. You can't afford to give him half of the equity. And this is for the 2 children, which are his children, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So definitely that would be something that I wowould look into. I mean, it can't hurt.
Yeah, he can't say yes if I don't ask.
That's right. And I don't know that, I mean, I guess you could ask him, and then if he's like, I don't really like that idea, then okay. And then you talk to the lawyer and be like, hey, this is what I want. Ultimately, if you've both got lawyers and you can't agree, the judge will decide. And, I don't know, I can't speak for judges, but if you're a stay-at-home mom for 11 years, you want the house for your kids, you're not asking for yourself. They know how prices have been going with houses and all this kind of stuff. I mean, it's a reasonable request. It's not that he's not going to get his half. Okay, say the market tanks between now and then. That would suck. But this isn't about money. This is about your kids having a stable place to live. That would be the point.
Right. Yeah.
So that's just a little advice I would, non-legal as my disclaimer, advice that I would give you. So, okay, well, is there anything else I didn't touch on that you would like to share?
I don't know. We went through such a path.
We sure did.
I can't think of anything.
How about anything that you might be able to advice that you might give other women that are just starting this journey from what you've kind of learned?
I'll tell you the exact advice I tell my very best friend because she is thinking about divorce. My stage 2, I think it's stage 2. I keep saying that, but I'm not sure.
Blindsided and devastated?
The part where you're grasping anything, doing whatever you have to do to fix it.
Yes.
That part.
Yeah. Blindsided and devastated, chapter 2. Yeah.
Do it. Do it wholeheartedly. All the issues that he laid down before me that were really troublesome to him, I addressed those issues with my best ability, whether I stepped out of my comfort zone for some of these things, but in the end, I know I gave 100%. And so the day that I said, you know what, I'm done. My efforts are not being matched. I'm wasting my time, my kids' times, and my life. I walked away feeling 100% okay with it because I put in that 100% knowing, walking away was a little bit easier because I did what I could do, and
right.
That would be my best advice is if you want it to work, give your very best effort, not what you think he deserves. You give what you know is the right thing to do. And then be at peace with that. Whatever comes, be at peace.
Excellent. I think that's excellent advice. And I will tell you that when I was going through my separation and divorce and I was with my therapist, I remember talking to my therapist and saying something about begging my husband to give us another chance or something. And he told me something about not valuing myself when I did that. And I remember thinking, this is my husband, the father of my child, the person that I married, the person that I, said I would be with the rest of my life. I've got to do everything that I can so that if and when it ends, I can walk away with peace saying I tried it all.
Exactly.
So I don't feel humiliated that I even begged him to give us another chance because there's not much more you can do. I didn't grab him by the leg and, let him drag me across the floor while he walked out. But I did do everything that I felt that I could do. And at the end of the day, you have peace in that. So
yeah.
Excellent advice. Well, Nicole, I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with me. I think that you are heading in a really good direction. I'm really excited for the future that you're going to have. And when you look back at this and be like, wow, memories, but I'm amazed at who I am. And let me ask you this. Do you feel like, even though I know you said you were pretty good about yourself and your self-worth, looking at who you were back then and to where you are even now, do you see the growth and the change in the mindset shift from if you'd had to talk to yourself 3 days after you got that letter from him? And maybe not, and that's okay. That's great that,
Yeah, I don't feel like there was personal growth just because I have always been a fairly confident individual. I just, I know my worth. I feel like I've taken my power back. I've taken my power back, if that makes sense. I never thought I needed him, but I definitely let him run the show. Just, he's a born leader and I'm a born okay, I'll go with the flow, whatever. So this whole process, I've definitely taken my power back and taken more accountability for what happens in my life.
Excellent. Well, I think that's a perfect way to end things. I appreciate you taking the time to speak to me. I'm glad that the From Devastated to Divorce guide spoke to you on certain levels. So that's great. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I hope that was a helpful chat. Thanks for listening, and a special thanks to Nicole for sharing with us. If you'd like to share your own chapter checkup, please reach out to me on Instagram at heavy_pages_podcast. And don't forget to download your copy of the chapter checklist. Well, that's going to be it for this episode. If you'd like to reach out to me, you can always find me on Instagram at heavy_pages_podcast. And if you found this episode interesting, please consider clicking on that 5-star rating and following so you are notified when the next episode drops. As always, thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the pages of life can be heavy, but you don't have to turn them alone.